Okay, so this is chapter 20. Cooper, Tuesday, October 16th at 5:45 p.m. Pass the milk, would you, Cooperstown? Pop jerks his chin at me during dinner, his eyes drifting towards the muted television in our living room, where college football scores along the bottom of the screen. So what'd you do with your night off? He thinks it's hilarious that Lewis posed as me after the gym yesterday. Hand over the cartoon and picture myself answering his question. Honestly, hung out with Chris, the guy that I'm in love with. Yeah, Pop, I said. Guy. No, Pop, I'm not kidding. He's a preemed freshman at UCSD who does modeling on the side. Total catch. You'd like him. And Pop's head exploded. That's how it always ended in my imagination. Just drove around for a while, I said. Instead, I'm not ashamed of Chris. I'm not. But it's complicated. Things is, I didn't realize I could feel the way about a guy till I met him. I mean, yeah, I suspected since I was 11 or so, but I buried those thoughts far down because the Southern jock shooting for the MLB career is not how we're supposed to be wired. I really did believe that for most of my life, I've always had a girlfriend, but I've never had to hold off until marriage like I was raised. I've only recently understood that it's more of an excuse than a deeply held moral brief. I've been lying to Keely for months, but I did tell her the truth about Chris. I met him through baseball, although he doesn't play. His friends with another guy I made an exhibition rounds with, who invited us both to his birthday party, and he's German. I just left out the part of me being in love with him. I can't admit that to anybody yet. It's not a phase or an experimentation or a distraction from pressure. Nani was right. My stomach does flips when Chris calls or texts me. Every single time when I'm with him, I feel like a real person. Not a robot. Keely called me, programmed to perform as expected. But Cooper and Chris only existed in a bubble of his apartment. Moving it any place else scares the hell out of me. For one thing, it's hard enough making it in the baseball when you're a regular guy. The number one of openly gay players who are part of the major league team stands at exactly 1, and he's still in minors. For another thing, Pop, my whole brain seized when I imagined his reaction. He's the kind of old boy who calls the gay people fags, and we spend all of our time hitting on straight guys. And thinks we spend all of our time hitting on straight guys. The one time we saw a news story about the gay baseball player, he snorted in disgust and said normal guys shouldn't have to deal with that crap in the locker room. If I tell him about Chris and me, 17 years of being the perfect son would all go in an instant. I'll be gone in an instant. He said he'd never look at me the same. The way he was looking at me now, even though I'm a murder suspect who's been accused of using steroids, that can be handled. Testing tomorrow, he reminds me. I have to get tested for steroids every damn week now. In the meantime, I keep pitching, and no, my fastball hasn't gotten any slower because I haven't been lying. I didn't cheat. I strategically improved. It was Pop's idea. He wanted me to hold back into a little junior year and not give my all, so there'd be more excitement around me during the showcase season. And there was. People like Josh Lanning noticed me, but now, of course, it looks suspicious. Thanks, Pop. At least this guy feels guilty about it. I was sure that the police got ready to show me unpublished about Chris, published about that post last month. I was going to read something about Chris and me. I barely know Simon, or only talked to him once, one-on-one a few times. But anytime I got near him, I'd worried about him learning my secret. Last spring, junior prom, he'd been drunk off his ass and when I ran to him in the bathroom, he flung his arm around me and pulled me so close I practically had a panic attack. I was sure Simon, who had never had a girlfriend as far as I knew, realized I was gay, and I put the movie and was putting moves on me. I freaked out so bad I had Vanessa disinvite him to her after prom party. And Vanessa, who has never passed up a chance to exclude somebody, was very happy to do it. And I let it stand even after I saw some Simon hitting on Keely later with the kind of intensity you can't fake. I hadn't let myself think about that since Simon died. How the last time I had talked to him, I had acted like a jerk because I couldn't deal with who I was. And the worst part is even after all this, I still can't. Nate, Thursday, October 16th, 6 p.m. When I get Glenn's dinner after an hour and a half, I'm supposed to meet my mother. Her Kia is parked right out front. Score 1 for the new improved version, I guess. I wouldn't have been all the surprised if she didn't show. I thought about doing the same a lot, but pretending she doesn't exist hasn't worked out that well. I park my bike a few spaces away from her car, feeling the first drops of rain hit my shoulders before I enter the restaurant. The hostess looks up with a polite, quizzical expression. "I'm meeting somebody?" Malakuli, I said. She nods and points to the corner booth, right over there. I can tell my mother's already been there for a while. Her soda's almost empty, and she's torn her straw wrapper to shreds. When I slide into the seat across from her, I pick up a menu and scan it carefully to avoid her eyes. "You order?" "Oh no, I was waiting for you." I can practically feel her willing me up. I wish I weren't here. "Do you want to get hamburgers, Nathaniel?" I used to love Glenn's hamburgers. I did, and I do, but now I want to order something else. It's pelting the window. Nobody calls me that anymore. "Nate," she says, but my name sounded strange coming from her. One of those words you say over and over until it loses meaning. A waitress comes by and I order a Coke and a club sandwich. I don't want that. My burner phone buzzes in my pocket, and I pull out a text from Bronwyn. Hope it's going okay. I feel a jolt of warmth and put my phone back in my pocket without answering. I don't have the words to tell Bronwyn that it's like to have lunch with a ghost. Nate, my mother clears her throat around my name. It still sounds wrong. How are you doing in school? Do you still like science? Christ, do you still like science? I've been in medical classes since 9th grade, but how would she know? Progress reports come home. I fake my father's signature they go back. Nothing. Everybody questions them. "Can you pay for this?" I asked, gesturing around the table like a belligerent asshole. I've turned into the past 5 minutes because I can't. If you're expecting that, you should have told me before the food comes. Her face sags, and I feel a pointless stab of triumphant. Nate, I would never. Well, why should you believe me? She pulls out a wallet and puts a couple of 20s on the table, and I feel like shit until I think about the bills. I keep tossing into the trash instead of paying. Now that's not earning anything. My father's disability checks barely cover the mortgage, utilities, and his alcohol. Now do you have money for when you've been in rehab for months? The waitress returns with a glass of Coke for me, and my mother waits until she leaves to answer. One of the doctors at Pine Valley, that's the facility I'd been in, connected with me a medical transcription company. I can work anywhere. It's very steady. She brushes her hand against mine, and I jerk away. I can help you and your father out, Nate. I will. I wanted to ask you if you were a lawyer, if you had to have a lawyer for the investigation. We could look into that. Somehow I managed to not laugh. Whenever she's making, it's not enough to pay a lawyer. I'm good. She keeps trying to ask me about school. Simon. Probation, my dad. It almost gets me because she's different than I remember, calmer, more even-tempered. And then she asks, how's Bronny handling all this? Nope, every time I think about Bronny, my body reacts like I'm back on the couch in her media room, heart pounding, blood rushing, skin tingling. I'm not about to turn one of those good things into a comb out of this mess into another yet awkward conversation with my mother, which means we've pretty much ran out of things to say. Thank God the food arrives so we can stop trying to pretend that the last 3 years never happened. Even though my sandwich tastes like nothing, like dust, it's better than that. My mother doesn't take a hint. She keeps bringing up Oregon and doctors and Michael Powers investigates until I feel like I'm about to choke. I pull out the neck of my t-shirt like that to help me breathe, that'll help me breathe, but it doesn't. I can't sit here and listen to her promise, hoping that it'll all work out, that she'll stay sober, stay employed, and stay sane. Just stay. I have to go, I say abruptly, dropping half of my half-eaten and sandwich into my plate. I get up, banging my knees on the edge of the table so hard I wince. I walk out without looking at her, and I know she won't come after me. That's how she operates. When I get outside, I'm confused at first. I can't see my bike. It's wedged in between a couple of huge Range Rovers that weren't there before. I make my way towards it, and then suddenly a guy who is overdressed for Glenn's Diner steps in front of me with a blinding smile. I recognize him right away. He looks through me. Nate Malkley Powers. You're a hard man to find, you know that? Thrilled to make your acquaintance. We're working on a follow-up broadcast about Simon Kellner investigation, and I would love your take. How about I buy you a cup of coffee inside and we talk for a few minutes? I climb onto my bike, strap on my helmet, and like I didn't hear him, get ready to back up into a couple of producer types block my way. How about you tell your people to move? His smile is wide as ever. I'm not your enemy, Nate. The court of public opinions matter in cases like this. In a case like this, what do you say we get them on your side? My mother appears in the parking lot, her mouth falling open when she sees who's next to me. I slowly reverse my bike until the people in my way move, and I have gotten a clear path. If she wants to help me, then she can talk to him. Okay, so in the few chapters that we passed, we got to know who was it? Chris more about Cooper and Chris's relationship, and how that's going, and how him being in high school and Chris being in college is working. We find that out that Cooper is in high school and Chris is in college, which was a definite shock. And then now within this chapter, we're learning more about Nate's mom and her addictions, and so that could also play a factor into who did this and why it could be Nate. I don't think it is, like I said multiple times. I don't think it was any of them, but now Nate has this on his side where his parents are both have addiction and do not have the greatest track record. So that's my opinions on chapter 20.